Welcome back. Now we turn our attention to local economy. Dr. Tarek Cheniti has joined us. Therefore, you have Chettaoui, Cheniti, and Chaouachi as well. Welcome to ErraisThe.
Thank you very much.
So, could you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
I'm an academic. I'm a blogger. I'm interested in all issues regarding governance and accountability. I lived abroad for 10 years, came back to Tunisia 2 months before the revolution, and never left since. And I'm really happy to be able to participate in this tremendous historic moment.
You've mentioned the term accountability. What is accountability, Tarek?
Accountability is to make sure someone is answerable to you for some reason. So this is the broad definition. When it comes to a political situation, it is to make sure that those people you elected in office are answerable to you as a voter, so that the democratic process does not stop at the procedural step of the actual voting. This is an idea which is usually associated with the English-speaking world. In fact, there are very few synonymous of this word in other languages. But it is a universal idea, I would say. It is inherently related to democracy as a concept, and it's at the heart of the revolution's demands as well. People, when they were protesting in the street, were asking for the government to come clear about where their money is going, what is being done with it. They called all those people who misused that money thieves. We remember that they were called Sarek in Arabic. So this is a time, as I said, it is an historic moment for us in this country to make sure that we don't just elect people, but that these people tell us quite clearly what is being done with our money.
Is this the Oxford University definition?
No, I would say as I said, it is a universal thing. If you go to India, you find exactly the same thing.
Tarek, earlier this week, the Tunisian Prime Minister Hamad Jebeli said that the growth rate of Tunisia was nearly 4.8%, which is good after the instability of the markets during and after the revolution. Do you have the same feeling?
You know, the good thing about statistics is you can use them in different ways. You can make them say whatever you want. Under Ben Ali, there were good indicators, economic indicators, which I think were not made up. I think they were quite accurate. And they were also sort of approved by the World Bank and the IMF and all these institutions. So the government was not lying about the figures. They were actual accurate figures. The problem is those figures do not translate into anything that is meaningful to people in an everyday sense. So if you tell me that you've achieved a 5% growth rate from last year, yes, that is true. But last year was a crisis in the history of our country. So obviously anything that is going to come won't be. At least it would be an achievement in any way. If you try to stabilize the country, anything that comes after that will be much better than the original situation. So we're not discussing the fact that this is a lie or not. We are saying that, okay, so we know that this government has achieved that figure, although it is also not, there's no agreement on the figure itself, but let's suppose that it is 4.8%. Now, how did that translate in practice? What did it mean for people? Did it mean to them more jobs? I'm not sure about that. Did it mean to them less inflation? I'm not sure about that. So where is the growth actually coming from, and what is it doing to people? That's my question to the government.
Yes, but yeah, I'd like to ask you a question. I mean, recently all the talk has been
Ask you, I'm not the specialist.
Well, yeah, I'm asking about. So I'd like to raise a question. So recently, all talk has been about the downgrading of Tunisia's
sovereign
rating by Standard and Poor's, and Mr. Prime Minister Jebeli said that there's growth. And yet Standard & Poor's has dropped our rating to BB, which is what is it again? Tell us, it's junk.
It's
junk.
Yes, so it means that you can invest in this country at your own risk. Basically, this is the basic definition of it. You're not sure of your investment, that your investment will be fruitful. And so invest and see how it goes.
Yeah, well, Prime Minister Jebeli has also said in an article I've read on Middle East, he said that this is Standard & Poor's is basically punishing the country at its fledgling democracy, and that this this does not take into consideration all the how the democratic process necessarily includes sit-ins and strikes, while the governor of the central bank said that this rating or this downgrade was focused mostly more on political instability or security
than on
or
economy.
uncertainty than on economy. How do you see that from an
Well, I don't see any separation between the political process and the economic process. The problem is the way we discuss this. It is always from the perspective of those people in power, be them the government itself, or the IMF, or the credit rating agencies. Well, I'd like to see how this would be turned around if we talked about it in terms of the citizens of this country. You downgraded the credit rating of Tunisia. Would that mean that I'm going to be more, that I'm going to go into more debt as a citizen? I'd like to know that. I know that after the downgrade of the sovereign indicator, the 5 banks were also downgraded, and these are banks in which people save their money. So obviously there will be consequences for citizens, and this is the most important thing to me. It's not just the sovereign rating for Tunisia.
Is this why you've mentioned human-centered rather than state-centered approach to economy?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, these credit rating agencies, they come with a certain rationale for how to assess an economy, and I think it is a good rationale. It is quite scientific in many ways, but it is not enough. That's my argument. It does not allow us to assess exactly what is being done with the country's economy. The government defends itself, of course. It has to defend itself and say that they are on the right track, that the economy is going to rebound, and that they need support from outside. But I also think that the government needs to be honest about the fact that they are not going to solve the economic problems of this country in 1 year or 2 years or 5 years even. It is a process that needs to be approached in multiple ways and to have different answers, and to include people especially.
Tarek, you will tell us about the priority of this government and maybe of the future governments as well. But I would like to talk about culture. You come here to talk about economy, but Wiem has the details.
Right. So we've talked earlier about
it's tiring. Talking about economy is tiring.
Yeah, let's take a little break, I say.
Yeah.
So earlier we've talked about the cleanup campaign in Menza 6 that Noor and her students were leading.
Menza 6 and 7, yeah.
And 7. And so, today, as you know, from the 3rd to the 10th, it's the World Environment Week. And, the Environment Week, at least here in Tunisia. And, of course, we have the World Environment Day on the 5th. And so today there was a cleanup in Marsa. But also in Marsa, there's been a big garage sale. That's something that's interesting in Tunisia for once. But the major cultural event at the moment that everyone's talking about is the Printemps des Arts, the art spring in Tunisia, which takes place on 3 different venues. We've got Bali Abdelia, Saada, and of course the Sidi Bouzid Museum from the 1st to the 10th. Also, I'd like to tell people who like culture and especially visual arts here in Tunisia, we've got an expo that's open till the 13th of June, the 15th of June. It is, so this is what we call Shkoun Ahna. It's called Shkoun Ahna, who are we? And it's about belonging, cultural belonging, historical belonging to different civilizations.
A very important topic.
An extremely important topic, channeled through art. And there's going to be a plethora of international artists. Also, we have a concert on the 5th of June in memory of a very loved student of music here. He's a zitherist called Suhail Mahjoubi, who passed away on the 14th of May. And so, in tribute, there will be a concert at the Théâtre Municipal in Tunis.
We are here inviting people to go to La Marsa and to Tunis, but I invite people to go to New York because we will call Eymen in New York. Eymen is the CEO and founder of Credit Flow Partners, leader in brokerage services in North America. Now I invite you to listen to Love the Way You Lie, so stay tuned. Welcome back. You're listening to Tunis International Radio. Now we're going to New York, where there's Eymen Errais, our second guest. Eymen, good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you doing?
Doing well. So Eymen, what's going on in New York? What's the weather like?
The weather is fantastic, actually, believe it or not. It's one of those mild days in beginning of June. Very hot here in this period of the year. But it's pretty okay. There's a marathon today in the Central Park. I don't know what they're running for. That's run for different situations. But the weather is nice. People seem to be happy.
What about the economy in the US, Eymen?
The economy in the U.S. is actually a little bit shaky. I was talking to some traders last week, and the statement and one good sign of things are not well is actually even in May, the gold dropped.
Wow.
In general, we always have, even things are not good, you always have gold as a shelter where people invest their money to avoid anything like stocks or interest going down or anything. But things are so bad that they need really a lot of liquidity to pay their bills. But even gold is not good enough. You need to have cash to be able. So we went beyond problems of solvency and stuff like that. But we got to liquidity issues recently, and so things are not top notch now, and banks are firing left and right. HPE fired about 27,000 people at the beginning of the year.
So it's very bad.
Yeah, so in Tunisia, we're not that bad if you compare it relatively with other countries.
This is why I asked you about the United States. Eymen, you know that Standard & Poor's downgraded Tunisia's sovereign credit rating to junk by 2 notches from BBB to BB. What does this mean? Is this a negative sign?
It's never positive, that's for sure. I mean, nobody wants to be downgraded, even if you take a kid. But the problem...
That's as a result of the weather in New York.
Yeah, I'm so emotional about the downgrade. So that's but the problem is, here's the issue. The issue is the downgrade first have to be 2 notches and not 1 notch. I would say in the financial industry, everybody was kind of aware that this is going to happen anyways. Downgrades really never happen really surprised, but they kind of delayed every time. It's never they come as a surprise. The surprise was that it comes in 2 notches. The other problem is we got downgraded, not because we have a lot of debt. Public debt. Public debt in Tunisia is pretty decent. It's about 48% of the GDP. If you compare it with France or US or Japan is like crazy, like 200%. So we are pretty decent. People who compare Tunisia to Greece and stuff like that, they don't even know what they're talking about. Very different issues. We don't have a problem of debt in Tunisia at all.
Yeah.
But we do have a problem, and that's why the downgrade happened. Is a problem of business plan. That's what bothers I looked at the financial community. What's the problem with business plan? We are in a business. Tunisia, you can think Tunisia as a company, and it's in business where its next 5-year business plan shows negative cash flow. So it doesn't have the ability to create some growth or some value to be able to pay any new debt that it comes. So who's gonna land a company that you know for a fact is gonna lose money? Nobody's gonna do it.
Really?
So basically they downgraded us just mainly for not having visibility of future growth coming. And it's a more structural problem. I wish we got downgraded for public debt, because that there is, some drastic measures and you can cut them right away and stuff like that. Here, basically, you need to redefine the whole business plan of Tunisia economically. And that's the main issue. Having said that, we shouldn't be only pessimistic, because it's only it's only S&P who downgraded us. So we are in what we call in trading in a rating split. We still have Fitch and Moody's We didn't downgrade us, so it's not our debt already spiked. It's a bad signal. But as long as Fitch and Moody's do not downgrade us, we are still okay.
Okay. Eymen, in spite of the current challenges facing Tunisia's economy, S&P expressed its expectation that Tunisia's fiscal and external imbalances will stabilize and gradually rebalance over the next few years. What's your vision of the future of the Tunisian economy, Eymen?
Here's the thing. In 2012, I have said it for the last 2 months, it's going to be a tough year. That's for sure. There is nothing. There is no doubt about it. Things after the revolution, I would say the business environment is improved a lot. I mean, for many investors, the sky is the limit. For many entrepreneurs, they don't think, oh, I can touch this sector, I can touch this sector. No, everybody can get in. Competition is better. I would say until end of October, just before the election, things went smoothly. We had November, December okay. January was pretty bad, where people just realized that actually they don't know where to go with their money. You can see it even the stock market liquidity really dropped in January. I think it's from political perspective that people did not realize that Islamists will run the country. So it took them some time to realize it, and that's why we came back a little bit in March. The problem is not only political, is government-wise. We have many ministers who do not have experience. And it's not to blame them because we never had any alternative political experience in the past. And if I were in the shoes of another, I would have placed people, kind of technocrats, who can run the country. And they focus on the political side. So at least they have both advantages. They have good people who know how to do that, they have experience.
Who know how to solve problems.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the people who were brought just after the revolution, they don't belong to any party. I mean, some of them belong to parties and they left the government, obviously. But the people who stayed in the government, they didn't have any issue political. They just want to serve the country.
Eymen, I'm Wiem Chettaoui here. I'm joining Adnen for today's show, and I was thinking about the idea, how, Standard & Poor's and whichever rating agency is probably going to look at the prospects of Tunisian economy, about what's going to happen in the near future. Now, if you take into consideration the recent the recent conference which was held between China and Arab states recently in Hammamet, the idea that Chinese and Arab cooperation will increase by around 50% and trade will increase by over 50%, and such involvement in world affairs at the level of economy. And for example, we've read recently that the Tunisian Prime Minister will be traveling to Istanbul for the World Economic Forum. I mean, doesn't this show a more positive image than the very bleak prospects that you're getting an impression of with the Standard & Poor's downgrade?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, first, investors and markets don't want to read anymore. They want to see action.
Wow.
We passed the past. It's more than like 7 or 8 months. The government is taking over, and they just want to see action. They want to see projects. They want to see people hiring. They want to see money coming in. They want to see investment, traveling around, and that's nice. It's good if you want to make some money. But at some point, we just need to have some action and just do it now. I mean, people. So that's the first thing. The second thing. The story about China, it's an overdone like many times. I mean, China, we heard about China for many years. China's gonna come to Tunisia. China has no interest.
Now we've got a speaker here, someone who really gets the action going in the studio. Thank you. I think Tarek has something to say to us and to you.
It's just a very little question to Eymen, to whom I say hi, by the way. Well, first of all, Eymen, I think China does have an interest in Tunisia and in North Africa in general, but that's another issue. I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned that Tunisia is not Greece, and I do agree with that. It's not as heavily indebted as Greece, but at the same time it is really heavily exposed to European risk, and this is going to be a problem for a decade, I would say. in what ways do you think a technocratic government can help us get out of that sort of problem? I mean, can you change the whole structure of the economy in a couple of years?
No, that's we are stuck with it. There is nothing we can do about it at this stage. I mean, we can do it in the long term. Tunisia rely on Europe in exports and imports. 80% of our exchange. I mean, I'll probably not have the exactly right number, but it's not very far. It relies on Europe. The good thing is we don't rely on Europe as Greeks rely on Europe, which basically they need to survive with Europe. We do have the possibility to rely on our internal consumption and internal investments. At this stage and this period of crisis, Tunisians need to rely on Tunisians. That's the way how I see it. Just stop saying that Germany is going to give us, I don't know, $500 million and the other are going to give me. Let's forget about it. We need to rely on ourselves. We do have the capacity to do a lot of good things.
Yeah.
We do have Tunisian investors who want to invest. They just need to have the right framework. I mean, I just read, there's a conference that the Tunisian holding want to do, like in Syriana, something like 3,000, an investment of 600 million dinars, 3,000 acres of agricultural projects, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But they still didn't get the approval from the government. Why the heck you will waste time with guys like this? These guys will leave. I mean, if the guy want to put a project $600 million dinars, just let them do it. I mean, we are not at the stage where it's like, oh, should we do it? We shouldn't do it. It's a matter of survival now.
So laissez-faire is what you're saying?
Say it again?
Laissez-faire is what we're saying here.
That's what you're saying.
I'm saying that that's what you're saying.
Eymen, you felt...
What did you say again?
Nothing. I was just saying how you seem to be promoting a
laissez-faire economy.
Well, I'm saying, what I'm saying, no, because we brought the question of China, and then I'm answering the question, the remark of China has, the only interest China has in Tunisia as a platform to get to Libya and Algeria, and that's about it.
And that's really a big interest, I think.
Eymen,
okay, which is okay, but it's not, I mean, if you see how the Chinese, their business model is on their scale. It's a business model, as you say, Walmart here or something. Do things very, very broad, touch as many people as you can. You have to have a huge mass and you have capacity of purchase, huge one. So we don't really fit in their business model. I would say we fit business models of Japanese maybe or Germans, but not really in Chinese, unless they completely change their business model, which is a problem.
Eymen, now I know why your family name is Errais, because you're really a godfather of economy, finance and economy. Thank you very much, Eymen. This is an open invitation. When you come to Tunis, just join us on the international service of Radio Tunis. Thank you very much. For those who have missed this podcast, they can find the link on my Facebook page, ErraisThe, the English language program, and on YouTube as well. Thank you very much, Eymen, and have a nice day.
Thank you.
Enjoy our next track. Bye-bye. Welcome back, you're listening to Tunis International Radio, and we are talking about the Tunisian economy, and our guest is Tarek Cheniti. Tarek, some observers say that our government is not able to take the necessary measures to fight against declining economy and financial indicators. Do you think this is true?
Yes, and I don't think it has to do with who is in government. It's just the fact that at the present time, any government would not be able to solve the problems of this country on its own. I think instead of focusing on actually getting everything right in the space of 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, the most urgent priority for now is to make sure that people have access to information and to knowledge. And this is not happening at the moment. I mean, you see all the polemic around the salaries of people in the parliament, in the Constituent Assembly. We don't know how much they earn. No one knows to the present day, and it is important that we know exactly what is being spent on that on those 270 people, because it is also a time in which we need to be very careful about our spending in this country. We cannot afford to spend money which is not spent wisely, especially that there are people who would need that money as you know, perhaps to start a new business, for example, or or because they are unemployed. You know, there are many ways in which you can use that money other than pouring it on salaries for people in government.
Yeah.
Well, I really do agree with Tarek on what he's saying about, you know, not having to put as much money on salaries and on putting it in different areas. But how Tarek, how do we do it effectively? I mean, in practice, how does this whole restructuring process happen?
It starts from people themselves, from the civil society. There is this wonderful initiative called OpenGov, which was started by bloggers, and it pushed the people at the Constituent Assembly, to be open about their processes, to show us what is being done inside that building. At the beginning, there was a lot of resistance to that, because it was assumed to be a technocratic expert process, which wasn't open to the public. But then people realized that actually it was important to them to know how the constitution is being written. And it was, again, I congratulate those bloggers for the wonderful job they have done in demystifying the constitutional process and in getting people interested in the drafting process itself, and also in the financial management of the assembly. This is a first step towards a whole new culture, whereby you would hold the government accountable for what they do, because the democratic process does not stop at the election. I mean, the government is used to telling us that they are legitimate, and this is true and fine. But beyond that, we also need to show how what that legitimacy means for us as citizens. Is it changing things for us, you know, in an everyday sense, in our daily lives?
So legitimacy, which is derived from their accountability, basically.
Tarek, some observers claim that the future is in Libya.
Partly, yes. Although I'm not quite sure whether Libya is stable enough to motivate a strategy of long-term investment in that country. You remember when the president talked about opening up the job market in Libya for Tunisians. Well, the political situation there does not allow anyone to just move there. There are lots of uncertainties in Libya, so I wouldn't rely on a single source of economic growth. I would say let us be open to different ways of running this country. We've tried the way of depending on Europe. Of course, Europe now is going through a recession. Well, it is not going to recover anytime soon, I would say. So let us open to other countries.
Tarek, what if you had an advice to the people in power in 30 seconds?
I would tell them, be humble. Honestly, be humble about what you can do for the country. You cannot solve problems on your own, and also be sure that you can make mistakes, and that's fine. And this is how we learn democracy.
Tarek Cheniti, thank you very much for your valuable contribution to today's edition of the English language program. We end. Thank you. Any cultural events for next week?
Well, for next week, I'd like to tell people to maybe check out Karim Gharbi's concert on the 9th of June at Nejma Zahra. There's also a very, very good concert to take into consideration, which is, if I can just find it right here.
Otherwise, you can post it on our Facebook page, ErraisThe, the English language program.
Yes, but the 14th of June, since I found it. At the Théâtre Municipal, we have Franz Liszt's Le Chevalier du Ciel. It will be, well, there will be Paula Kraft and Todor Pedrov, two great names in in music and musicals. And all the benefits will be going to the children of the moon in Tunisia, people who are suffering from xeroderma pigmentation.
My message to the people is go to theaters, go to the cinema. This is summer, this is the new Tunisia. Tarek, thank you very much. I'd like also to thank Eymen Errais in New York, Noor and Nizar joined me on Tuesday for a very special edition with a very important interview and a guest in the studio. Next, a news update in French and the Italian language program with Madame Selwa Segir. Stay tuned to RTCI. Bye bye.
Ça va, content.
D'ailleurs, vraiment,
Merci.
vraiment bravo. Ça s'arrête là.